So I'm back here. I said that I was going to give you a little bit more of an update on my child. My child is 9 years old. I was a stay-at-home mom for his first 3 years of his life. He was born at home. He's a breastfed baby. I ended up getting a job when he was about 2.5, going on 3. And then I moved in with a friend when he was 3. And he has had a few medical incidents through his life, just kind of like I have. But it started when he was 2. It was when I got a job. I was supposedly not supposed to have a job. I was starting about having a job, but I had to because, I had to move and I had to pay for certain things, things that I had to do. And I spent my whole life being educated, and I had a career. I had a whole thing planned before I got pregnant. And so after I got pregnant, it's pretty crazy to tell a woman who had a career already, that she can no longer have a career. So I went back into the food industry. I've been in the food industry for over 15 years. I love it. I started out in the language section, learning language and linguistics and things like that. It was part of my own self-discovery. But I want to tell you, when Micaiah was 2 years old, he had a fever. And when you're a stay-at-home mom who breastfeeds, a lot of times fevers is something that you breastfeed away. You hear a lot about skin-to-skin contact. The mother does a lot with a child's immune system, especially when they're that little. You are their immune system. They share their entire immune system with you. And if you just make sure you have skin-to-skin contact, so basically, if I don't have a shirt and he's breastfeeding and he doesn't have a shirt on, his body temperature will match your body temperature or mine. So if I have a normal temperature, I'm not sick, I'm 98 degrees, it will bring his temperature closer to mine if I breastfeed him and keep him cool. You can always do a cool bath, or, you want to give them like Motrin, baby Motrin or things if it gets out of control. And that's the thing, if you keep a temp, and he was like weird when he was little, he would, his temperature would drop too low. If I gave him Tylenol, he would be at like 93. And I'm like, how's your temperature 93? Are you in hypothermia? And so I wouldn't give him Tylenol like that, because I was scared to death. I'm like, he had 100 degrees temperature, which that is perfectly fine. If you're fighting a virus, you want your temperature to stay in the 99 to 100 degree range, because that's what kills the bacteria or the virus. It'll fight it. You don't want it to go too high above 100, but you don't want to bring it too low, because if you bring it low, that's when the sickness starts to multiply, because it's not hot enough. It's not hot enough to kill it. So I had gotten a job, and I went to work, leaving him at home with his guardian, and I said, hey, you gotta watch him, because he's 100 degrees, make sure it doesn't get any higher. I gotta go to work. And I was at work most of the evening. I didn't get off until 9 p.m. or so. It wasn't a terribly long shift. But when I got home, they weren't at home. And so it was maybe a couple of minutes or so. They show up. He's with an adult, and the adult brought him to the door, and he kind of just pushed him in the door. And he looked at me like he was mad at me, because he's mad that I have a job. And I'm like, okay. So then he turns around and leaves. He gets back in his car and he drives off. And my child comes in, and I start taking his coat off. He had a winter coat on, and I felt his chest, and I said, you're so hot. Like, what? Why are you burning up? And so I start taking his clothes off of him, right? And then I go look into the cabinets to try to find a thermometer, trying to find something to give him. And I'm like, okay, I got to get his temperature down, right? So it's probably not even 5 minutes of this going back and forth trying to figure out what to do. And he goes into the bedroom, And so I followed him. I went into the bedroom, and next thing you know, he's on the floor, and he looks like he's choking. Like his teeth are like this, his eyes are closed, and his teeth are clamped. So I said, he's choking on something. Oh my God. And so I try to clamp his teeth open. Like I try to put my finger in his mouth, and I can't do it. And I'm like, so I called the ambulance, and I said, I don't know what's wrong with him. I think he's choking on something. He has a temperature, and I'm trying to treat him and all that. And they said, I think he's having a seizure. Is he having a febrile seizure with his temperature? I said, I don't know. I can't get to the thermometer fast enough to even get it to him because he just came in the door, you know. So they send the ambulance. The ambulance comes, and they had to take him to the ER here, and they said he's having a febrile seizure. And I said, oh, you know, of course I would have known. It was 104. It was going up, and so they gave him Tylenol at the hospital, and that's basically all they could do and we waited till his temperature came down, and we brought him back home. I had to call, say, hey, you dropped him off with me, and why is he seizing 5 minutes after you dropped him off at the door? You know, so he came to the hospital too, and you know, we ended up going back home. But it was obvious neglect. It was very painful for me. I hate that this happened. You know, it's really not fair. He's like, I was like, where are you at? He took him out to play. Like, he took him to Barnes and Noble so he could play with his cousins. And I'm like, with 100-degree temperature? Why? And they've been out all day, and it obviously hadn't been given any Motrin or anything like that because his temperature was just high out of the sky. And it took several days for me to get his temperature back up to 98 degrees. It kept staying at 93 degrees. I bought, like we did, of course, when you're infants, you know, you can take thermometer on their butt. And so we were like, why is it 93 degrees? And then I took his temperature in his ear. We bought like it spits like $40 temperatures, and I'm like, dude, it's 93 degrees. I'm trying to get his temperature back up. I said, I can't give him Tylenol because he's like in hypothermia. This is insane. And so, but yeah, so right now he's 9 now, and that was his first hospital experience. He'd never been in the hospital. He's going at home. And he ended up having to go back to children's neurology after he was separated from me. He was separated from me after COVID because I lost my home. I couldn't afford it without a roommate, and my roommate kind of moved on in her own direction. We had a 3-bedroom home, and so I had to move into an apartment with 1 room. And in South Carolina, your child has to have their own bed space. Especially at that age, you know, he's not in a bassinet. He has to have his own bed space. So I had to kind of split custody until I could afford to move. Well, all of a sudden he developed seizures because he's not with mommy anymore. And I don't really get the full story, but all of a sudden, by his guardian, he was taken off of his seizure medication a month before consulting the doctor. He just took him off of it. And I said, why would you take him off of it? That's not fair. So I go to the appointment with him and try to talk to her and see what's going on. And I'm over his medical stuff, and so I'm trying to get documents now to see what exactly happened with the MRIs and things, because I was notified later, this is about a year ago, he was 8, that he almost died. He was hanging out with me, and he says, Mom, I almost died. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I had to go to the hospital and almost died. And I said, what happened? And I didn't get a real story. Like, I was told it was dehydration. Said, you were dehydrated? And then I got another story that's way worse. So I'm waiting on MRIs and medical tests to see what exactly has happened to my child, so that we can make sure that he's okay. But yeah, that's my daily update for today. That's what we're working on at this point. He's got so much medical needs that he needs to be evaluated for. He was burned in the eye when he was about 2 years old, to the point that his eye was swollen shut. And it was in a really bad situation where, I couldn't really get help.